Joy được ơi, we're back with the Vietnamese drop. No, but for real though, there's this quite the back and forth between Gam, my boys, my brethren, led by Levi, as well as Mad Lions, who have been proving pretty strong up until today. Spoiler, until Gam managed to edge them out in the end. This was a really close banger in terms of a draft perspective. Went very back and forth. I don't think either team, like let's say, played the draft perfectly. Both teams definitely had some rough around the edges sorts of drafts, and they definitely ran into some situations. Like you could just tell that they were like, "Oh, you picked that there. Let me think on that real quick," and then you can kind of see like it's not as fleshed out. But overall, it's very back and forth, very chill, and I wanted to break down and go through the series real quick. First things first. Mad Lions allergic to Shyvana. They saw what happened in that other series, and dude, they do not want to deal with it. Shyvana is as to Levi as is Nidalee as is to Elyoya. Essentially, just off-angle jungle picks that really mess up the pacing of the game for a lot of teams because it causes a lot of chaos and just affects the dynamic of the jungle very significantly. That's the way to kind of think about it. Like it will make it that much harder for teams to pick things like Sejuani or Maokai if they're getting abused by champions like this, and they're getting essentially their shit kicked in by like Shyvana just full clears twice or Nidalee full invades you, and then it causes a lot of problems. You know what I'm saying? It makes it really awkward. Makes it the practice you're putting in isn't against this off angle stuff, so they don't want to deal with it. Every game this series as well, by the way, they go for the Yone B1. And it's all a matter of how the teams kind of address it. In this game, you can kind of see why teams are not opting for the Akali like traditional matchup counter as often, and especially as early as Gam is doing it here. I would actually say this 1-2 is pretty weak from them. The reason for that is that it's like similar dynamics, such as let's say Vex into LeBlanc or Galio into LeBlanc. It's like your matchup's better, but at what cost, right? Like you're down for that because like the Yone player is still happy because now you forced Gam into showing their cards and they can only play a certain way, and it makes it a little bit more awkward for them. You know what I'm saying? So like it's like you trade the laning phase slight disadvantage in exchange for a pretty decent advantage in terms of flexibility in your composition. You can kind of just tell. So Gam, they opt for AD jungle, and they end up blinding the Wukong actually because of the. I guess in their eyes, this is a good pairing, and since there's not many priors left, they think that maybe they think that Mad Lions will go for a certain pick, but then they actually go for the Maokai jungle, and it throws them for a loop, right? So basically, Mad Lions are pretty ahead in this draft. They get the Ziggs as well, and then they can ban 2 champs, and then Gam. Obviously, since they've already revealed that they're kind of a forward comp, they're just like, it's whatever. Let's just pick the Kai'Sa and go fully forward, right? Not a big deal. I'm chill with that myself, right? But Gam does eventually, my boys do get a little bit punished from that eventually, and they try to salvage it by trying to find their way in as much as possible. But like at this point, like it's a little bit hard to really come up with anything to address it at this point. I actually also think the support bans made it a little bit more questionable as well. So they choke support, right? And you know, it kind of makes sense. These are the best 2 like peel supports for Ziggs, but I think that pool of sort of like tanky-ish engage is too large, and I'm actually surprised they don't actually go for the top lane choke instead. You know, banning out the Gnar. You could ban out Cassante Renekton as well, and then you can kind of see because there's fewer options there, right? There's a lot of like synonymous champions in the support role that can do what the Ziggs is looking for. So that's why I'm surprised that, you know, they burn so many resources on that, and it ends up just looking like a little bit weird, right? I can talk about the Smolder 5 as well. Like this could be the reason why they left the Gnar open, because they wanted to they had like an idea for it. You know what I'm saying? Like their draft was like, yeah, let's think about this. If they go Gnar, I got something for you. You know, we can go the Smolder here. But I don't think they paired it together where they're like, they put these scenarios in isolation where, yeah, we can go Smolder into Gnar and then we can go Akali into Yone, but we didn't think about how cohesive of if both of those conditions were true and what happens to the other roles and like how that implies what we should ban and draft, etc., and how like it kind of makes things a little bit harder. And you can kind of see like I don't think Mad Lions need to play especially well here. It's just like you just have better champs, I swear. So it's like it's a pretty give and take, right? Second draft, basically they switch sides and Gam also take Yone. This time Rumble is open though because Gam end up banning the Ziggs and they don't want to deal with it. So Mad Lions go for the Vi route, and in this case, the Wukong now makes sense. Crazy when it's all that changes is if you pick your first or second, and all of a sudden the champ is that good, right? It's like a lot. I think it kind of just dictates how sensitive the world's meta is at this moment. I've been talking about this Kennen pick into the Rumble as well. I think it's actually really solid, and like this meta is still up for, let's call it, malleability, flexibility. Like it's still subject to change. Let's call it that way. I've been seeing this Ari into Yone matchup more as well, where I actually do think it's better because of the fact that it's more flexible than the Yone, and Ari's a more consistent laner, right? The Akali, your comp's gonna go a certain way for sure. Then again, sometimes it can be a little bit awkward, right? So when you go Ari, you can lock the charm into Yone whenever he tries to go for a longer trade, and then you can still apply pressure, and that's what teams are really looking for in a lot of these matches right now. So really cleaned up draft from the first game. I think Gam were just a little bit confused, just a couple of chains, and then like snowballed for the rest of the draft. But this one looks really good. It could be because like the blue side reset, it goes crazy. You know what I'm saying? But after that, there's a lot of AD carry bans, as we've been seeing in a lot of drafts, because you're basically just missing your bot laners at this point, and there's not too much variance in bot lane. MDK actually go for the Xayah Rakan route in this case, and I'm surprised. So there's two options, right? This is a denial from the side of MDK, right? They pick Xayah to deny from Gam, but I think an even better alternative would have been to threaten something else and just ban Xayah, right? Or you can see if they're going to ban Xayah. You can swap one of your two bans for the Xayah ban, then you take one of the Ashe or the Ezreal, in my opinion. Possibly the Ashe, right? More than likely the Ashe, in my opinion, and then you can have support on 5, and you can threaten either engage pick, or you can even threaten like Renata or something like that, or you can threaten Braum or something, right? You have the most flexibility, you have the best laning phase, and you have it helps you lean best into the support R5 instead of just leaning. You're basically revealing that you're turning your R5 into a B4 B5, because now you're just telling them, I'm gonna probably just play Xayah Rakan here if you're going Xayah on R4, right? So you basically gave Gam an R4 R5, right? You can go you let them choose the best matchup possible into the Xayah Rakan, right? If you go Ashe on 4, then you're just like, well, Gam is cooked. It doesn't matter what they pick, right? And then you can just be happy, essentially. So that would be like a small like area of feedback there. And honestly, MF's not the greatest champ in the world, but there's not many champs left. So I understand why they had to stoop this low. Game 3. So we're basically back again, same opener, but this time the Aurora was left open because of the Ziggs ban. So I like this adaptation from Gam, because basically it's like, instead of just letting them pick the B1 and just take it, why not force a trade, right? Your team also has to be on the same page in terms of allowing this to sort of happen. Like when you're Gam, you might have to accept the fact that you might get either one of these champs, depending. Like Mad Lions have the cream of the crop pick, where they can dictate whether they want the Aurora Flex or the Yone, and then Gam has to choose the other one, right? And then they actually go for a crazy Nocturne pick. And honestly, this could be a tech from them. Potentially, like, they notice that Mad Lions like to utilize the Yone and sides and stuff like that, or the way they like to move. So this could be a pre-pick into the other slow junglers as well, because it extracts more value. It's like the Walmart cousin of the Shiv, but with a different champ identity, right? And you're also going to need some AD, because you have the Aurora, and you decide to go Yari into the Yone again. It's actually a pretty solid job so far, because they got the Pyro pick Aurora, and they can match it into the Gnar, right? The only thing would be the direction of this draft, because it's like kind of like you have the Nocturne that loves to go in and pick on sides if he wants, but again, salvage this really well, and they end up going for, I believe it's Callista Braum, and in which case it converts their identity into sort of like a FTB comp, and then MDK actually end up opting more towards a forward comp, which is also fine. I would say this is the closest draft overall, but I would say Gam had a couple of nice reads in terms of, one, the Nocturne pick being able to punish Mad Lions, and also two, the Callista, it's not the Callista per se, but more like the Braum pick being able to utilize R5 support and really catch Mad Lions at the very last second, right? They leaned in on the flexibility here. They actually have really sound fundamentals. It's a really good game plan. Mad Lions' drafting is pretty solid too, but you can kind of see like it's very nice, very satisfying the way they actually are a cohesive unit and draft well while keeping Levi in mind. You know, he's the X factor for them, and the team is very aware of that, and they are down for letting him kind of thrive. So that's why I think this team's drafting style is quite lovely, and I wanted to kind of share that with you guys today. So hopefully you got a little bit of that, and I'll catch you in the next one. See you guys.